there's several companies that do the same business that I do. And so I keep that in mind. And if you pick me, then I'm going to make it a great experience for you. There's not a lot of difference in products that we use or methodologies that we use to get customers, but it's how we treat the customers after the fact that I think makes our business so successful.
You're live on the Kim Angeli Show. I have one of my favorite people here today with me, Allen Langley, streaming in from Shelby, North Carolina, president and owner of H&H Pest Control. He and I do life together. We're in Rotary together. He is probably one of the most generous and grateful people I know. I just wanted to have him on the show to tell us how gratitude and go-giving helps him in life and business. So welcome, Allen. Thanks for being on my second show.
Well, thank you, Kim, and Merry Christmas to you and all of our audience that's watching.
How has gratitude really helped you first in your business? Of course, that spans over into your life because you're second generation pest control, 50 years this year. Woohoo! 50 years. You know, most businesses don't last more than 5, and you're in the fifth decade. What an accomplishment. Tell me a little bit about how gratitude, how choosing grateful living, kind of in your business and life, just makes, how does it help you?
Well, as you just said, we've been in business for 50 years, and I think that's largely due to our gratitude and appreciation for our customers. We want them to feel that. We want them to understand how grateful we are that they're the reason that we're in business. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be. And so I think a lot of times people forget uh, who is it that pays their payroll, pays their bills, and all that. And it's just with your tutelage on grateful living. And I think I've lived a grateful lifestyle for probably 62 years. That'll tell you how old I am. So, as Kim said, I've been to 45 different countries. Uh, haven't been to Mexico and Canada yet, so I don't count those. Those are easy ones. But I have been grateful for the opportunity that Rotary has offered me in going to most of the countries that I've been to is third world countries. I've been there to put water in, wells, put 30 wells in Ethiopia about 3 years ago.
We just recently, you and I did a book club for the Cleveland County Chamber of Commerce where we brought people into the Go Giver laws. And the first Go Giver law, thank you, Bob Berg and John David Mann, is the law of value. And so a lot of people say, oh, well, why would I fly around all these places, or why would I invest in the community, which you do, you invest in the community, and you're not saying, oh, what's the ROI on that, right? You've kind of like said, the ROI will show up.
Well, I was looking for the embroidered little plaque I've got that my sister made me years ago, probably 40 years ago. And it says, you haven't lived until you've done something for someone that can never repay you. It's just an honor and a privilege to be able to go to Ethiopia, to Africa, to China. Those are great places to visit. And we only hear the bad stuff about China or Ethiopia or Africa. And we start forming our opinions based on the information that we have. But you get there and you meet these people, and they're just a very gracious, loving people that have nothing but will give you everything.
I want us to stop for a moment and think about the just celebrating 50 years in business. Now, so I'm only 53. So 3 years, I was, I was 3 years old, right? I'm not really good at math, but I'm good at writing. Because you have to think about, so H&H Pest has survived so many recessions, 2001, 2008, COVID. If you had to say a single thing, or maybe what do you think makes your business thrive versus some businesses that don't?
I think it's community involvement and people understanding and knowing that I certainly appreciate you. Uh, Not only you, Kim, but my customers. And if people always want to feel like that they're being appreciated, and you just got to love on those folks. And so I just think that's vitally important in today's business when there's such a narrow margin of, there's several companies that do the same business that I do. And so I keep that in mind. And if you pick me, then I'm going to make it a great experience for you. I mean, it just happens that way. I mean, there's not a lot of difference in products that we use or methodologies that we use to get customers, but it's how we treat the customers after the fact that I think makes our business so successful.
Well, and you know the statistic, but the statistic I teach is that 68% of your customers will leave you if they don't feel like you care about them. So those of you that, bring on a client and then ignore them and go chase some strangers and your retention shows it. I would encourage you to have some stickiness in the customer experience and relationship to make your business more, grateful, have a grateful business. Be grateful for your customer. A lot of people ignore their customers. Well, you don't get referrals because they don't even remember you, right? So a lot of people leave a business because they don't feel like, well, if I'm not there, they're not going to miss me. They don't, nobody cares. And they don't even realize it.
Yeah, Kim taught me not to, Christmas cards don't count because they get so many cards during the holidays. And yes, they may appreciate that, but it's a card that I'll send. Hey, just thinking about you today. Just wanted to let you know, thanks for being a great customer. And those are those are worth 10 times more than a holiday card that you can send.
Well, it's the unexpectedness. It's the getting that card in the mailbox in March, and it's the only card in the box with the bills. Where my mailbox will be full of Christmas cards and they'll just get lost in the shuffle. And so I tell people, I'm like, how can you be unique in a noisy world? Right? Because the world right now is busy and noisy, and everybody's slinging fruit pies and Christmas cards. And so I tell people, your clients should have already been nurtured January through October, right? They should have already felt valued before the ho, ho, ho holiday time comes, right? We should have, I tell people, y'all celebrate gratitude in November, but I'm over here celebrating gratitude in January when y'all are all grumpy because you just got your credit card bill. I said, I'm going to have a gratitude challenge in January when y'all are all like, oh, wow, why did I spend so much money on the holidays? And then you have to pay the bill in January. That's when I want to turn the gratitude train on, is when everybody's default is grumpy. What is it that listeners could do that you think maybe you've made a habit or something to embrace gratitude on a daily basis? Maybe what is something you do to kind of center yourself and choose grateful living in a grumpy world?
So every morning I start with a devotion, as you know that most of the time I will share it with you, and I think about that every morning and pray about it. And once I do, I go through, I don't have a list. So I go through and pick the people that I think it's relevant to. You always start the day off great when you have that gratitude to a God that, or the God that blesses us all the time. Most people don't even think about that we're blessed just with the air that we breathe. And so I do a devotion every morning, and oozes through during the day. When we answer the phone, I've told everybody here at the office, hey, you know, make it a great experience. I don't know where your point of contact is. We're talking to business owners. For us, probably 60 to 70% of our first point of contact is a telephone. So I think that we need to make that a positive experience so that they will feel that. And I think that even though it's just a telephone, that they can tell your grateful attitude.
When I had a staff like you, I did encourage my team who was answering the phone, and I would I would say this in jest, but I would say, ring, 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 your paycheck's calling. And I taught this the other day, and I said, a lot of you have a customer call, and you're like, oh my God, what do they want? And I said, you're taking that energy that, oh my God, my phone's ringing. What do they want? And you're actually starting the conversation with negative energy. And so, if you could be grateful your phone's ringing, because mine has been ringing for 30 years. I tell people if you have a seasonal mindset, you'll have a seasonal business. I mean, Alan, is your business always busy? Yes. Why? Because you answer your phone like, oh, thanks for calling. And so somebody asked me the other day, Kim, what's your best app on your phone? And I said, the phone, because I answer it, I talk to people, I text. How are you caring about someone beyond the transaction? How are you making them feel? How are you leaving their life better than it was? And you did this very well, just naturally. And you probably watched your father do it, or your parent, or someone that mentored you. But it is definitely shows through in leadership in the culture, because if I get Randy on the phone, it's the same way. I get a response, and a response is respectful. And so that is what I think is makes your business so sustainable, is that they feel like you care about them and you're not just another number. I mean, I've called many a company and not even get an answer back. So you do that well. So I just say, people want to hear your voice, and they want to hear that you care, and you do that well.
Recently, as another example, what you were talking about, when we had luckily, we were not hit as bad as Asheville and some of the other areas that are really struggling right now. But we had a lot of trees down. We were without power 6 days. And so there were very few restaurants that were open. And this restaurant person, I was in his establishment. Now, this wasn't somebody that works for him. You could kind of understand it more, but he was complaining so much about how busy he was that he sold out the day before, and he hoped he had enough food today. And I thought, what are you in business for? What are you not in business to make money and to serve your customers? And I thought, I mean, and his place was packed. There's probably 25 people hearing him rant and rave about how busy, and I haven't been back since.
Well, you're like me. I am grateful, and I will even pray for clients. I pray for their prosperity. I pray for their provision, and I want them to have success. I'm cheering them on. And so there's not a phone call from a customer or someone in my network that I don't enjoy answering, because when people leave this earth, the first thing we miss, friend, is the voice. And what people don't realize is, in this technology world that we live in, through email and text, we have lost the inflection and the connectivity of the voice to build the relationship. But the first thing we miss is the voice. And when I do make those gratitude calls, which I talk to you a lot, or if I call a client that I haven't heard from, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good to hear your voice. You ever call someone and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good to hear your voice? It's because in texting, yes, it's a great mode of communication. I love texting. But I also love picking up the phone and hearing Allen Langley's voice. That is what we're missing. That's where, yes, you can embrace AI to a level that helps you delegate things that are transactional. But what we do, Alan, building relationships and caring about others, will never go away. It'll never go away.
My job is to solve problems, to solve people's problems. So people that call here normally have a problem. And so if we can solve that and take care of it, then we're way ahead of the game. And and people have, people will always have unrealistic expectations. But if you will let those folks know that going into it, they know what to expect. And we still will have people call back and they don't understand something, and we're glad to explain it again. And then 95% of those folks are just they're fine. And again, but That's our whole mindset, is to solve the problem of the customer that calls. And if you have that mindset, then you're grateful that they have called you and had this conversation and given you the opportunity. I don't mind customers calling and complaining because they're giving us an opportunity to fix their problem.
I love it. And a statistic to go with that, Alan didn't even know I have one. Only 4% of people will make the call that they had a less, they had a complaint. 96% of them go somewhere else. So why do we thank the people that call? Because we, again, like you just said, we had the opportunity to solve the problem and even maybe learn how to be a better business from what they tell us. So I appreciate you, Alan. And thanks for everybody that's joining. And please feel welcome to reach out to Alan or myself if you have any questions. Bye bye.